S1.2 goes live this Thursday, the 23rd, and is going to feature nerfs to Victor and Aurelia, buffs to all three of the new Domination Tree runes, along with a couple of adjustments to Otacon and Feats of Strength. The new champ, Mel, will also be hitting the Rift this patch, and will have her first ranking on the tier list for our mid-patch tier list that will drop next week. And do you remember when knowing how to set up a freeze in low elo made you special? These days, you're considered a troll if you don't know what a freeze is. Problem is, challengers are so out of touch with the fact that everyone in low elo has improved, so if you ask for help, you just keep getting the same outdated advice. Or even worse, they give you tips that only work in high elo, like how you should sync up your wave crashes with your teammates in multiple lanes to set up invades or objective priority. The theoretically correct play is usually not what actually works in your own elo. Oftentimes, it's something that may seem out of the ordinary, like split pushing as an ADC that will give you way more agency. We teach you the correct way to play League like everyone else does, but also the adaptations that actually work in your elo, so you'll always have multiple great ideas for what to do to win games. We're constantly producing and updating our strategies with players getting better, so SkillCapped is by far the best platform for learning League of Legends. We're so confident that if you don't climb 5 divisions while actively using SkillCapped, you can claim a full refund. Our service has zero risk with the potential to save you tons of time in your climb, so make sure to give us a try. So to start off the video, one of the big meta shifting changes that we have seen to kick off Season 15 has been due to the Domination Tree rune adjustments. Our challenger expert Hector went into detail on this in one of his daily update videos that he posts to our website that keeps you guys in the loop of all the new meta trends. One of his main points of emphasis was that for most champions that run the Domination Tree as their primary page, they're really missing being able to run eyeball collection. The trade-off of better vision control for less damage is just not worth it for solo queue, and has resulted in champs like Ahri, Graves, Evelynn, Katarina, Fizz, and many more losing a bunch of power to start the season. For S1.2, Riot's trying to help these champs out by buffing all three of the Domination Tree runes. However, we still don't expect that to significantly help those struggling champs. Grizzly Mementos is getting buffed in a way that the trinket haste per takedown is going up from 4 to 6. Max stacks are dropping from 25 to 18, however, to compensate, so it's not even a super big buff here. Deep Ward is getting buffed so that the trinket duration is going from 30 scaling to 120 seconds to 45 scaling to 150 seconds. And then for Sixth Sense, the cooldown of the rune will be lowered for both melee and ranged champions. So our expectations going into the patch with these buffs are that they won't increase the power level of champs who need to run Domination primary very much at all, and we should continue to see most of them struggle for S1.2. Select support champions are the ones who should end up benefiting the most from these buffs. A bunch of ADCs will be getting indirectly buffed for this patch, as Yuntal Wild Arrows will see a boost in power. Cost is being increased by 100 gold, however the attack speed is going up from 25 to 35%. This is a net buff overall because 10% attack speed has a gold value of 300, while the item is only being increased by 100 gold, so you're getting an additional 200 gold worth of stats for free with this buff. As for the ADCs who will be liking this one the most, Jinx is its best user currently, so she'll be thriving in S1.2, while Zeri, Sivir, Trist, and Kate all have potential with the item if the buff provides enough power to push it past their alternative options. ADCs will be getting some added armor pen for this patch, with both Lord Doms and Mortal Reminders seeing their percent pen increased by 5%. Cost of both items are going up by 100 gold, but if we break down the change, 5% pen has a gold value of 205, so this is a net buff as you will be gaining 105 gold worth of stats from this adjustment. So that's all for the item and rune changes, but we do have a bunch of adjustments to Otacon and Feats of Strength. Voracious Otacon is now going to provide enemies with more gold when they kill an opponent who has the revive buff. Instead of just getting 100 gold, you will now be getting 200 for this patch. Voracious Otacon is also going to be spawning more frequently from now on, as Riot will be increasing its spawn rate from 15% of games to 25% of games. The bloody roses that spawn around the map are going to be nerfed for this patch, as each petal that you pick up is going to be providing 2 less XP than before. The adaptive force per stack is also being lowered. And then for Feats of Strength, instead of first blood being one of the objectives, it's being swapped out for the team who is first to 3 kills. Moving on to the top lane changes now. Aurelia is the champ who's receiving the most amount of changes for S1.2. There are 3 nerfs. The first to her W, as it's going to be losing 60 base damage at max rank. This one actually stings quite a bit considering W is the spell that you max second on Aurelia, so losing 60 damage at level 13 is nothing to scoff at. Not only is W losing damage, but E is as well, with the base going from 80 scaling to 270 to 70 scaling to 230. R damage is dropping as well, but only at rank 2 and rank 3 in the spell. So at level 13, when you have rank 2 in your R, Aurelia full combo will be losing a total of 120 damage. We had just moved Aurelia up into the top lane OP tier during our S1.1 mid-patch tier list, but with these nerfs coming through, she's going to be dropping back down and we'll be moving her into A tier. So if we move on to having a look at how the top lane tier list is shaping out, the OP tier is going to be locked down by Warwick and Urgot. Urgot moves up for S1.2, taking Aurelia's spot as he's been dominating in this new season. With the changes to teleport for this season, Urgot is actually now winning about 1.5% 30% more when taking Ignite. In 14.24, the win rate gap between the two is not nearly as large, as Ignite was only winning about 0.7% more than TP. So due to the teleport changes, Ignite has seen about a 1% spike in win rate on Urgot, and with the champ having one of the best level 1s for any top laner in the game, Ignite being even more of an optimal option for this season really allows for Urgot to take over in the early game. One other adjustment on the tier list consists of Tahm Kench moving from S into A tier. Tahm is losing damage on his Q for this patch, and he had been just barely holding on to his S tier spot in S1.1, so we're leaning more towards the chains dropping him into A for S1.2. There are 3 junglers getting buffed for this patch, and Evelynn is one of them. Evelynn is one of those champs who has been on the downfall to start the season due to the removal of eyeball collection. To try and boost her back up a bit, Riot will be increasing E movement speed from 30% flat to 30 scaling to 50%. Our AP ratio is going up as well from 65 to 75%. Since Evelynn does like to build Rabadon's second, the AP ratio buff is actually more significant for her than it would be for most other champs. Evelynn had really been struggling though in S1.1, sitting below a 48% win rate, so even with the buffs, she likely doesn't move into a top tier spot. We do think she moves out of the lower percentile though, so we'll be giving her a push from B into A tier. Master Yi is next in line for a couple of buffs, as his AD growth will be increased from 2.5 to 2.8, and E bonus AD ratio is up from 30 to 35%. Yi had been hovering around a B or A tier standing last patch, so as a result of these buffs, he should solidify a spot in the A tier for S1.2. Blue Kayn has been quite weak to start the new season due to the rune changes, so he's getting a direct buff to his passive, as the damage amp is going from 15 scaling to 45% to 25 scaling to 45%. Despite this buff, we still think that Red Kayn priority should remain higher, and we'll be leaving Blue Kayn in B tier while Red sits in A. So the jungle meta right now has some pretty clear winners and very clear losers as well. As noted during the start of the video, we don't think the domination tree buffs will be enough to help out the likes of Graves, Elise, Nidalee, Rengar, Gragas, and Shaco, so they are going to remain in B tier or below for S1.2. We actually don't have a single jungler who runs domination primary ranked higher than A tier at the moment, so it just goes to show how detrimental the eyeball collection removal has been for so many of them. It's Conqueror junglers who are on top right now, as Wukong, Nocturne, and Amumu are the OP tier picks, and they all take the Conqueror keystone. Amumu and Wukong are definitely the 2 junglers we would recommend you put the highest priority on right now, as their skirmish and teamfight capabilities make them really strong for this highly objective focused meta. It's not like objectives weren't important before, but with feats of strength and Otacon, players are just paying way more attention and putting more emphasis on fighting around objectives, which makes Amumu and Wukong really good. Moving on to mid lane now, the first of 2 mid laners getting nerfed for S1.2 is Cassiopeia. Riot ended up overbuffing Cassio last patch and gave her too much free movement speed. Of course, Cass can't build boots, so the intent behind the buff was to give Cass some added strength, since all other champs would be able to take advantage of the new boots upgrades. However, it turned out the upgrades really aren't even that powerful. So the bonus movement speed that Cassiopeia gets when her team acquires feats of strength is going down from 2 per level to 1 per level. Considering Cass has been one of the highest win rate champs in S1.1, we aren't sure if this nerf will be enough to actually bring her relative power down all that much. Even if she loses 1 or 2% win rate, she'll still be in a great spot, and that's kind of what we were expecting from this nerf. So for now, we're going to be leaving Cass in the mid lane OP tier, but if the nerf does land a bit more on the harsher side, we'll adjust for the mid patch tier list. The other mid laner receiving nerfs for S1.2 is going to be Viktor. Viktor has been hands down the most powerful mid since his mini rework, so Riot's going to be reducing his scaling power. Q damage AP ratio is going down from 60 to 50%, while our DPS AP ratio drops from 45 to 35%. So definitely not nerfs that will turn Viktor into a terrible champ by any means. However, he should lose his OP tier standing moving forward, as we'll be dropping him into the S tier. So for the mid lane tier list, we have a few adjustments to discuss. With Viktor dropping out of the OP tier and no longer being that standalone #1 mid, we're bumping up both Lux and Hui. Mages are definitely on top of the meta right now, with many mid lane assassins on the back burner due to the removal of eyeball collection. We really like Cass, Hui, and Lux in specific though, because they are incredibly powerful when fighting around objectives due to their AoE damage potential. Anivia, Vel'Koz, Brand, Nico, and Syndra are all super strong right now as well for that same reason. Mid laners who have seen the biggest dip in power to begin the new season include Katarina, Fizz, Zed, Akali, and LeBlanc. It's mainly the removal of eyeball collection leading to the downfall of those champs, but a bit of an underrated reason as to why these assassins are weaker for this season is due to the minion changes. This is something that Hector touched on in episode 3 of his daily updates on our website. The gist of it is that minions now die faster for this season, so it's easier to push out waves, and therefore you don't have as much time as before to roam. This means that mages now have an easier time punishing assassins that are looking to roam by hard shoving waves and pressuring tower plates, so mages' relative power have gone up due to the minion changes. For ADC this patch, we just have one champion getting buffed, and it's Smolder. Smolder's Q bonus damage based on crit chance is now going to be affected by critical strike bonuses like on Infinity Edge. Considering Smolder has been the lowest win rate ADC in S1 S1.1, and the fact that his scaling theme just doesn't bode well for this new season means we can't see this buff actually bringing him back into meta. For now, we will be leaving Smolder down in the ADC C tier. So with Smolder being the lone ADC change for S1.2, there won't be much movement on the tier list. It's a lot more clear right now who the biggest winner is down in the bot lane, as Misfortune has been taking over in the new season. For this reason, we're going to be dropping Corki and Cog out of the OP tier, as they just aren't quite on the same level as Misfortune right now. There's a slight chance that due to the Yuntal buffs, Jinx moves up into an OP tier spot. However, we can't see the buff being quite enough to propel her to the same level as MF. Regardless though, Jinx, MF, and Corki are the 3 ADCs who we would recommend the most right now, and having at least one of them in your champion pool is what we'd advise. Now, one thing you may have noticed when looking at stats for ADCs is that Jhin has seen over a 1% drop in win rate for this season, but he wasn't directly nerfed at all, so why is this the case? Well, Jhin is one of the few ADCs who does run Domination Primary, and Eyeball Collection being removed really hurts his viability with that rune setup. What's actually most optimal now for Jhin is running Fleet for the Keystone. However, about 50% of Jhin players are still going Dark Harvest. If you're running Fleet on Jhin, he's really not as bad as his win rate suggests, so we're leaving him in the ADC A tier. There's just one support on the buff list for this patch, and it's probably not one that many will be too excited to see, as we've got Yuumi. Yuumi was just buffed at the end of last season as well, so it looks like Riot's really pushing to get her into a solid spot. Passive cooldown will be lowered from 20 scaling to 10 seconds to 20 scaling to 8 seconds. Passive AP ratio is up from 15 to 25%, and our damage AP ratio is going up from 20 to 25%. So nothing too major here, considering 2 of the buffs are AP ratio changes, and since supports struggle more to acquire items, the AP ratio buffs are never as impactful as you'd like. Even the passive cooldown buff doesn't come into effect until you get level 12 on Yuumi, which makes the change completely negligible in a lot of games. So overall, not changes that will move the needle to propel Yuumi up the tier list, as we'll be leaving her in the B tier. So of all supports who could be nerfed right now, Riot has gone with Tahm Kench for S1.2. Tahm already fell off a bit last patch due to the Heartsteel changes, and he's getting hit again with Q base damage dropping from 80 scaling to 280 to 75 scaling to 255. Change will end up being pretty impactful considering you max Q out first on Tahm, so losing 25 damage at level 9 is a decent hit. Will the nerf kill Tahm's viability? Likely not, but we don't see him holding on to an S tier position any longer, as we're going to be moving him down into A. So here's how we have the support tier list aligned for the second patch of the season. OP tier will be locked down by Maokai, Nami, and Rell. Rell is bumping up and taking Poppy's spot in the OP tier for this patch, as we like Rell slightly more at the moment when it comes down to a melee engaged support. Rell has more AoE impact than Poppy does, and her straight up teamfight power is stronger, which gives Rell that edge up when fighting around objectives, which is something that's very important for this meta. Maokai and Rell are both incredibly powerful for the same reason, as their ability to sway fights around Otacon is a cut above most other supports due to all their AoE impact. Zyra, Vel'Koz, and Nico are 3 of the better raw carry supports who have a lot of strength in meta right now, and are all placed in the S tier, as they've all got extremely impactful team fights. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So that's going to wrap everything up for the patch S1.2 solo queue tier list. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you back soon.